Hey guys, welcome back. So to start off, I'm going to show you how to do a basic cast on for knitting. So there are a ton of different cast on methods that you can learn, and they all have different benefits, but for the purposes of the kind of project that we're doing and the purposes of being a beginner, the basic cast on is more than sufficient. And it's also going to kind of teach you the essential motions for casting on. Once you have these down, you can then expand into other cast on types like the long tail cast on or the German twisted cast on. There's crocheted cast on, there's knitted cast on, provisional cast on. It goes on and on and on. And there's different reasons you would use those. Down the road, I'm going to do a couple of videos about the other cast on methods, but they'll just be individual one-off videos. You don't need to worry about learning those right now. For this, we're just focusing on how to start a project for a beginner. So, you're going to have in front of you the tail end yarn is going to be where the end of your yarn is, and then the working yarn is what we call the end that is attached to the ball. So to start, you need to make a slip knot. If you don't know how to make a slip knot, I'm going to show you. So holding your yarn, you're going to take your tail end of your yarn, you're going to pull it up over your working end, and then I'm just pinching that here. You're going to put your finger through the little loop there, and you're going to grab on to that tail end. And then we're pulling it through. I'm holding onto it, but I'm not letting the tail go all the way through that circle there, the hole. I'm pulling with my other hand the working yarn tight, and that makes a little loop. And if you see, you can change the size of that loop by your tail end there. And it's a slip knot because when you pull it, it slips right open, and there you go. So again, just to demonstrate, you're going to pull the tail end over the working end. You're going to put your finger through the little loop there and grab onto the tail. And you can hold the tail with your other hand if you're worried that you're going to pull it all the way through. So I have both ends held here. And then you're pulling that working yarn so that it's tightening up over your tail. And you have that loop. So the little loop there is what we're going to slip onto the needle. And once it's on, pull the tail to tighten it up, because you just want it to be tightened onto your needle. So to start casting on, you're going to hold your working yarn. You don't need to worry about your tail. Hold your tail away, especially if you have a longer tail end of your yarn. You want to make sure you're not accidentally working with it. So kind of hold it out of the way. And you're going to take the working end of your yarn, lay it across your palm like this, and pinch it with your fingers, like your pinky and ring finger should be fine. Now you're going to put your thumb underneath here, and you're going to put your index finger underneath, and then you're going to kind of pull your needle down here. It's going to look like a triangle. See how that looks like a triangle there? The tip of your needle is going to then go underneath the yarn from your thumb and up through that hole, and then you're going to just let go of that loop from your thumb and your forefinger and pull, and there you have one stitch cast on. So we're actually going to call it two because we're going to count our loop as our first stitch, so you can see that. And then we're just going to keep doing that. So again, across your palm, hold on to that yarn, put your thumb and your forefinger underneath the yarn. You're going to pull that down so you have your little triangle. Underneath the yarn by your thumb, up through the middle of the loop. So again, we went up through the middle of that loop, and then we let go and pull it tight. And I'm holding it with my pinky and my ring finger, thumb, forefinger underneath. The tip goes under in the middle and we let go. So thumb and forefinger under the one by the thumb, into the middle, and let go. And as you get the hang of it, you'll start to go a little bit faster on that. You can just keep watching this video on repeat basically until you get the motion. Thumb and forefinger underneath the yarn, through the middle, let it go. Underneath the yarn, through the middle, let it go. Thumb and forefinger underneath, through the middle, let it go. And I'm just going to continue to cast on until I have the number of stitches recommended by the pattern. For the purposes of this project, I would recommend doing 30 stitches if you're using the worsted weight yarn. If you're going to be doing the chopsticks and the t-shirt yarn, I would suggest casting on maybe 15 or 20 stitches depending on how thick your t-shirt strips are. If your strips are on the thinner side, go with 20. If they're on the thicker side, go with 15. It really depends on what you're making too. If it's a dish towel, you may want to be a little narrower than if it is than if it's a pot holder, which you want to be a square. But again, this is, we're not being held to any kind of strict rules here. So this is what your cast on should start to look like. As you can see, there are the stitches are on this side here, and then you can see the cast on edge here, which kind of looks like, it's hard to see in the video, but it looks like a little twisted rope almost on the end there. Do the rest here. 22. Okay, so there we have a full cast on of 30 stitches, and this is what your cast on will be regardless of which project type you're gonna do. So this is the kind of universal basic cast on that you would use. On your straight needles like this, the next step you're gonna have before you move on to the next video is turning your project. So you just cast on, you got to essentially the end of your row. Your yarn is on your left-hand side. And what you're going to do is you're going to turn your project with your yarn coming underneath, and you're picking up your empty knitting needle in your right hand. You've got your full knitting needle in your left hand. And then that's how you're going to start your project. This is where we're going to move to the knit stitch. So that's how you're gonna finish, and now you're ready to head on to the next video. Unless you want to learn how to cast on to circular needles, real quick, I'm just gonna demonstrate that. So when you're casting on to circular needles, it's the exact same cast on. You are basically going to, so just as we started out, we're gonna make our slip knot. Slip knot is gonna go onto the needle. You're going to cast on, and I'm just going to do 10 real quick here just to show how it'll work. And so the same way, now if you may keep going and it may extend down to your needle. So we just casted them on, and we're going to do the same thing that we would have done with our straight needles. We don't need to worry if the fact that they, if they move down the cord there, it's not a big deal. we're just going to still treat this other needle here. This is our empty needle. So we finished with our stitches in our right hand and our yarn in our left. We're gonna move the full stitches that we just finished to our left hand. And then the needle in the right hand is gonna be your empty needle. And you're just going to start knitting that way. So it's the exact same principle, you just have a cord in the middle. This flexible cord is actually it's easier to work with once you get used to it than having the ends that poke you while you're going. Just bear in mind your longer project is going to extend down onto the cord. It's not really, it's not as distracting as it sounds for you to have the fabric on the cord. Once you start working it, you're pulling the fabric back up toward the tips, which is where the action actually happens. Nothing is happening on the cord the same way nothing is happening down at this end of your needle. So I wouldn't be too concerned about that, but if you want to use circular needles and you feel adventurous, it's really not scary. It's the same as working with the straights, and you can follow any of the same, tutorials as working with the straight needles. They're actually, you have more options with the circulars. It's more versatile. So I just wanted to give you that option here at the end. You are all now ready to move on to the next video, which is going to just be how to do the knit stitch. And that's going to work you through getting your project started, and if you want to do garter stitch. If you have any interest in learning other cast on methods, or if you have any questions about this video, just leave a comment down below and let me know. I'll address it in the future, or I'll just reply. Thank you.